Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For this video I am going to start on a kit batching project for a Walthers grain elevator. This project is slightly complicated by the track being very close to the backdrop. This results in there being insufficient space to cut the silos down the middle where I would like to. Instead I have to trim them to a much thinner profile than I would like. Anyway, the plan is to use one full Walthers grain elevator kit and an add-on silo kit. So anyway, without further ado, let's just turn the camera around and get to work. Here is the status of the project after the first serious work session. I have 4 sub-assemblies assembled. I've got the 6 silos to the left and the 8 silos to the right. The main central building and the dump shed in front. I may have mentioned earlier that there is relatively little clearance available between the track and the backdrop, so I'm having to thin down the silos more than I would like. The client has 3 1/8 of an inch from the backdrop to the center line of the track, and that is what this works out at. I converted everything to millimeters because I'm more comfortable working that way, and it turned out that the main building could be 46 millimeters deep. The next task is to cut and fit the remainder of the silo sections, so the bases, the lids and the truncated end pieces. So let me get on with that and I will be right back. Don't go away. Well, yesterday's session was not particularly long. All I did was get the bases and the tops and the end pieces on the 2 banks of silos. You might be able to see a little bit of a seam down there. I still have to put some filler in because it's not perfect. And the same this end as well, although that end will be against the wall, so it'll be virtually impossible to see it anyway. Anyway, that will be a task for a different time, because today I want to get the remaining sub-assemblies built. I'm going to start with the 2 head houses, one each side, and then probably all the apparatus that goes on the roof as well. Those will be the last major sub-assemblies. I also have some other places to fill, such as the joints where I've spliced in 2 roof sections, and I've got to make sure that the dump shed fits perfectly as well. So let me get back to work and I will be right back. Don't go away. When it comes to the head houses, I'm going to have to change the design slightly from what was intended. Here is one of the end pieces, and here is the leftover part from the roof that I cut off. There are a pair of ridges cast into it, and those are intended to keep the head house centered on the roof. So basically it's intended to be all back there, but because I have a very limited distance available between the track and the backdrop, I've had to make it a lot thinner. So obviously the head house needs to come further forward. Clearly I can't get a full window, and if I put it the other side of the window it's going to look too narrow on the end, and if I were to cut it so that half of the window there, that's going to be a very awkward situation where it crashes with the backdrop. I don't think this is an issue with that window, so I think what I'm going to do is discard the end piece and use the plain bit. Oh no, I can't do that, it's not corrugated. Okay, so I'm going to have to make it up. I'm going to have to patch up the window, or better yet, there are other panels left over. I have a spare one of these which I will cut new ends from. Well, in this morning's session I completed 4 more sub-assemblies, the 2 pieces of the head house and the 2 dust extractors. I went with a slightly different technique to what I discussed on the end walls. Here is the end that I didn't use. You can look at the back, there is a chamfered corner. So in order to keep the corners, I just cut the center section out, I cut the window piece out, and then spliced on another piece at the back. You can see it there. Once it's painted, that joint's going to be completely invisible. It's just going to look like a seam in the corrugated iron. Similarly, where I've extended the roofs and the front walls, you can see where the joints are now because of solvent stains and slightly different colour and slight variations in the colour of the plastic. But you may notice that instead of just putting 2 full pieces of roof on, I staggered the joints. It means 1 extra splice, but I think the extra strength from staggering the joints is well worth it. Here we can see that I just used scrap 60 thou styrene to splice all the joints. And I think I also need to run a large file down the joints between the silos and the main tower. The way the kit's intended, it would be the curved end of the silo which would be glued to the tower. But with the end piece omitted, it doesn't really work quite that way. So I'm going to clean it up with the file, make sure it works properly. Okay, so this silo fits a lot better now. See a much bigger gap here. The problem is these 3 tabs designed for joining the end curve in, they stick out proud of the end. So I have on this silo filed them off with a large file. There's still a bit of light getting in between the 2 sections because the edge of the curved silo is very thin. Instead of filing the tabs back, I think I'm going to cut them off completely so that I can put a strip of square styrene down there, and that will not only strengthen the joint but prevent any light from leaking through. Well, I've now cut those tabs off completely and filed the edge smooth, and I have glued strips of 1/8 inch square styrene to both sides of the main tower, and then that will just fit in there between the top and bottom flanges, and then once I've squeezed that together, that will be a strong and perfect joint. I'm going to do just a little bit of cleaning up along that front corner of the main tower where the styrene cement squeezed out a little bit, and then I'm going to get these 3 sub-assemblies glued together. So don't go away, I will be right back. With those 3 pieces now glued together, all I can sensibly do is leave it without disturbing it and let the solvent go hard. Otherwise, if I try to move it, I'll probably disturb it. And with such a long, skinny building, it's important to make sure that it is straight all the way so that it hugs the backdrop properly. So I'm going to go back upstairs, get on with something else, and I'll be right back. Well, so far the project is going pretty well. I'm going to break this video here and continue in a second installment where I will add the windows, lighting, weathering, various other details, and get the project created up for shipping. So until then, thanks for watching, and bye for now.